After 5 years, when I did my startup finally, I was shocked at like how little of the stuff that I'd learned was actually helping me like do my day to day. The first idea that we had was just plain old rent to rent, right? Like getting like renting something at like a low price and then doing short-term rental arbitrage. Because I was just like broke out of the startup, didn't have any money, couldn't fund anything. Investors are pretty agnostic. They say, show me the returns, right? And they don't even come to visit the property, right? They just say, okay, this is like low enough amount. Here you go. Yeah, I'm good. Also reflects in, that's why we have like very high average occupancy rates, right? Because during peak seasons, we see, let's say 82, 85, sometimes 90% on some really well managed properties. And that brings up the average by quite a bit. Hi guys, today we have another serene podcast. I am super happy to see my guest is Marius from PARADYSE. PARADYSE is a company from Bali, not from Phuket, and will be very interesting to listen. What are you doing? Can you a little bit introduce yourself, Marius? Yeah, so Oleg, thank you so much for having me here. First of all, I'm super impressed what you all did with SID. Like we had a brief lunch just now. And wow, you have a long track record. So life goals. And I think also what you're doing with podcasts amazing. I actually listened to the Michael Arnold one, and I think if your listeners walk out of this one half as informed as I did out of the Michael Arnold one, I'll die happy. Michael, will you say hi to you? Yeah. Yeah, so look, I'm building PARADYSE at the moment. I'm one of the founders at PARADYSE Homes. PARADYSE is Southeast Asia's first co-ownership platform. So we help people co-own luxury villas from as little as $25,000, fully managed, hassle-free, and you can either use that share for personal use, you can holiday there, or as a rental income, or a mix of both. Awesome. Okay, before we speak deeper about your business, can you a little bit tell about yourself? Because you don't look Indonesian. And can you tell how you, like where you're from originally and how you came to Southeast Asia and especially Bali? Yeah. I mean, funny story. Before even I went to school and went to become a founder, I have a long history with Bali. My parents actually had kind of a love story there back on the 70s, right? So I have a very special connection to the place. And it's, when I was born, I think the first time I was in Bali was maybe in 92 when the island was very, very different. And it's become our sort of summer holiday rhythm. Like we would always go there, and there was climate right with the family, and then there would even be this like community of like other Europeans, like French people. That's how I also picked up a little bit of basic French, right? And we would just go there and be there every year, and that's kind of like that happened until my teens, and then I kind of stopped going with my parents and started living my own life. So yeah, that's how like I kind of nurtured this love for Bali. By background though, so I finished university, and I was similar to you. I was a DJ actually, and a music producer, and I was kind of just like drifting around, thinking I would kind of keep doing that. As a spotter, the DJs actually become good entrepreneurs afterward. Too much thing you probably learns as it can be used in business afterwards. Yeah. It is true, right? Getting hooked is like sales, right? So yeah, but so I hope it's actually not a measure of success, because I wasn't very good at getting hooked. I would say my first real paid gig was my job as a consultant at McKinsey. Okay. So I started consulting in the Hong Kong office for McKinsey. I kind of went there to build digital ventures, right? And like immerse myself in the tech bubble. That was in 2014. It was an amazing school. Like I learned a lot, picked up a big toolkit. But in the end, actually, my most interesting project that I did was here in Thailand, right? I built in 2015 a music streaming app for one of our clients. Wow, how it's called? It would reveal the client name, so I can't. But like, never got launched anywhere. It's not launched. No, it didn't launch. And I think that's kind of like the crux of my experience at McKinsey. Like, I always wanted to do like this venture building stuff, and it was a very exciting story. Used it a lot in recruiting to tell people how amazing McKinsey is. But at some point, we didn't do enough of that kind of inspiring work. I see. And I really wanted to be an outbreak. McKinsey is quite big consulting company because it's everywhere in the world, right? So I think you are the maybe fifth person from the McKinsey that I speak in this, and everyone have really good experience in business development, I would say, like mainly when you don't have anything that you need to create the venue, right? Yeah, like you learn a very valuable toolkit. I would say like my biggest takeaways from McKinsey is just how like you give me any problem and I will take it, dissect it, figure out what is the most important part to solve, right? And then just go for that 80-20, right? So like that we're focused on the 20% that will drive most of the value and ignore the rest, right? And it's a really good school to give you these like thinking tools to like do business, but it doesn't necessarily teach you how to do business in the end, like, so of course, after 5 years, when I did my startup, finally, I was shocked at like how little of the stuff that I learned was actually helping me like do my day to day, for consulting income versus real, into the entrepreneurship, right? It's completely different ways, completely different way of responsibility of the pressure and everything. That's why, but still, it's a good school, right? It's a good school. It's a good school, and yeah, and so I think towards the end of my fifth year there, I was getting a little bit yeah, I understood how it works. When I was staying in Hong Kong, right? I was in Hong Kong. Yeah, okay. It was exciting. I mean, I was able to travel around the region. I've seen like I worked in Thailand, I worked in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. You name it. I was in Australia for like 6 months, 6 months in Auckland and New Zealand. Like, so I've seen lots of different places. I'm really grateful for that. But yet again, like you're kind of applying the same toolkit, and like at some point you are, you know how it works. So it was kind of on autopilot, right? And I was looking for like, okay, where does the next wave of growth come from for myself? And that's, that's when actually Rocket Internet, out of, all which is this German company builder that's, built a lot of the iconic European startups, basically super good at cloning stuff that works in the US. Yeah. They started reaching out to me and they were like, hey, like, would you want to do something with us? And I was really like, at the time looking, so it was perfect timing. And but your main business was developing the Einzel product, right? Yeah. So sort of like I would serve like my clients were I think I would do probably three things, right? Like general like strategy, always with an IT focus. Like, hey, how should we develop our technology to keep up with customer demand, right? Then like more like classic McKinsey work. Here's the IT department. How can we save costs? Okay. And then like too little of, hey, we actually want to build a new product, right? So in the case of this music streaming app, for example, I was the product owner, the product manager, building this thing with the developers. I see. So I learned, I learned sort of like a little bit of like venture building there, but I felt like it wasn't deep enough, and I wanted to really test that out in the real world. Sounds good. So and then you end up in Bali, right? Like it's very interesting pattern because I see so many Europeans, who came in Asia and in young age, they actually don't want to come back to Europe. They travel around the Asia and find opportunities around. And what I see with the Phuket and Bali, it's two places where most of those people observe as a paradise places. So why Bali? So there's one intermediate step before we get to Bali, which is my first venture out of McKinsey was a dental tech startup that I founded. All right. So yeah, it's kind of strange, right? I didn't wake up one day and decided, oh, I should really be a dentist because I want to fix teeth. But it basically Rocket Internet, the venture builder that I wanted to collaborate with, so, gave me this idea. I ended up not doing it with Rocket. I went out and raised my own funding to do it. Okay. And so I moved from Hong Kong to Malaysia to build this business, right? And what's interesting about it is, though it appears very different on the surface from real estate, right? Actually, if you think about it at the core, it's kind of similar, right? Because it's a trust-based sale. Like I need to persuade you to let me mess around with your teeth, right? Which requires a certain level of relationship and trust. And it's a very high ticket e-commerce item, right? You're paying like $1,500, $1,800 for a treatment. Obviously, now I'm selling fractions in real estate, which is 10 times that price. But correct me if I'm wrong, if I understand it well. So you use IT for sales mainly, right? So it's not for technology of the of the teeth fixing, right? Like it's specifically for sales, customer interaction mainly, right? Basically, I think the majority of that business was to like find customers to do teeth straightening, right? And like basically sell them the dream of like having a more beautiful smile, right? So, more and more confidence and yeah, everything that comes with it. And then there was like the operations part as well, like figuring out the clinics, getting the clinics to do the treatments for you, right? Which is also kind of similar in terms of messiness to working like with developers and like onboarding them onto your for. I completely understand you because it was exactly my story. These online sales for real estate because and COVID start, like I look at my ex-wife and she look at the screen and she sell IT products, for example. And I see that the actual way is exactly the same because most of the real estate developers, they said in something that will be complete in future, right? But they said in today, exactly said this with the development of IT, you said in something that will be complete later, right? And so on. But actual pattern of making decision exactly the same. It's building trust and the way how you express your product and how do you explain in simple words for people the product. But in the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Is it you sell messy construction where is a truck driving around, or you selling the product that 10 IT guys building some code. So the logics is pretty similar. The difference only it's the hardware business is more complicated. The IT business is easiest to fix something. Then hardware, if you build concrete structure wrong, you build it wrong. You cannot change it easily, right? So that's why I completely understand what you're talking about, and I believe that this logic today will appear in almost all of the businesses in terms of sales. I think because it's not about the actual yes product is super important, but most important is my sales mindset, how people understand the demand and how people understand how to explain to people those demand and build this trust to make sure that people will make sure that they give you the money, right? And like you said, also create that emotional connection to it, right? So like we used to show people a before and after simulation of their smile, right? And that was like the hook, and people can see themselves, just kind of similar to showing people maybe a house and then asking them, hey, how does it feel right now to be in this, and like seeing the pool from your living room couch, right? It's very interesting case because I never think about it. But if you speak about the teeth, especially I also it's same as property. I will specify it on two different segments. We have demand, which is people don't need to sell. Let's say if let's say you have your teeth is not painful, everything is good, right? So you don't have the demand. Like okay, you feel okay, you don't have this request or change you to make some treatments or something. Exactly the same as real estate. If you have your own house where you live, why would you need to buy more, or why if your needs are already covered, right? But let's say the added value of on those things to explain. Let's say if you speak about this, if you want to have beautiful teeth, if you want to have not only healthy but also beautiful, so then it's extra added value to the business, and exactly the same with the real estate. You can add, of course, your own property by yourself, where you stay, so you can buy one more property for different reasons, for capital appreciation, for your own usage, for the maybe some money for rentals, and it's like a addition to it, and that's one of the I think the main not problem, but sometimes people think, why do I need to do it? Why do I need to make beautiful teeth? Like why I need to buy more property? So the salespeople actually need to explain people why. Yeah, this is most important question, right? And it's also the part that I used to love even back then, and also now getting to know our new customers, right? Like there were different types of, like there was the flight attendant, right, who just kind of wanted to look good for her job, right? And there was kind of the guy who worked at the BC, sort of like in a junior position, and he just wanted to get ahead in his career, right? And so just like figuring out like what makes these people tick and how can I help them get there. Yeah, I always love that kind of stuff. Okay, so then and that's what you bring to the real estate. Ask how you end up in the real estate business in Bali. Yeah, so while I did that, when I launched the Singapore market, so I built that out to like multi-million-dollar revenue, was launched multiple markets. One of them was Singapore. And while I launched the Singapore markets, I was kind of like, and this is by the way the story of how I met my co-founder. So I kept kind of like sitting at this cafe in the morning, reading my Stoic literature and like journaling a little bit. And every morning, can you picture this? There's this like big Aussie guy, bare chested, in a weighted vest in the heat of Singapore, running past. I was thinking, oh, what a show off, like every morning this guy comes running past, I'm doing my thing. And then like one day the guy approaches me, he's like, mate, I really like that you're reading Stoic literature. And then I kid you not, it's like dripping in sweat. It's like super hot, 35 degrees, and starts quoting from the middle of the book, like some super deep quote of Marcus Aurelius. And I was like, whoa, this guy is like either insane or this guy is going to be my business partner one day, And it turns out both. Yeah. So that's how I met Marcus. And we were both on different trajectories, right? I was become my dental startup, and he was doing some e-commerce thing in the US. And yeah, so we kind of like both our journeys had to like come together, right? And Become ended when like about a year later, when I almost sold the company to my competitor, but like the deal took very long, and then we kind of ran out of funding. So it was almost an exit, but more of like an emergency land. Okay. So finally, I was free, he was free, and then we kind of both moved to Bali. And so we sat at dinners, and we kind of noticed that everyone's talking about real estate. Mind you, this is at the end of COVID, so the island wasn't officially open to tourism, but you could feel there was like really energy in the air.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, like let's look into this. And the first idea that we had was just plain old rent to rent, right? Like renting something at like a low price and then doing short-term rental arbitrage.
Yeah.
Because I was just like broke out of the startup, didn't have any money, couldn't fund anything.
Yeah.
We looked at the stock of supply available that even is available for long-term contracts, and we were shocked. Like the stuff that you would rent for like 2-3K a month was so crappy that we were like, okay, like this doesn't work. Let's try building, right?
Yeah.
And so, we were able to get some money in and like started building sort of like our first traditional brick and mortars developments. We built 7 villas together. Marcus did sort of a separate project building like another 7. And it was good. Like we had like in 2 years, 170% cash on cash return and exited that development. But we kept running into 3 issues with our buyers there. And I think you have kind of similar things happening here in Phuket. Would be curious to hear. Number 1, affordability, right? I mean, the villas, like you're talking for a 2-bedroom, maybe 240, 250K US, right? Just much cheaper than buying in Germany or in Australia or anywhere else.
Possible to buy. Actually, it's possible to buy in Phuket, no chance here for this amount, but it's even now for this amount, it's you barely will find a 2-bedroom condo, like in the good project for this amount of money. 240 is right now is you buy it really good, I think really good 2-bedroom condo, max, like sometimes even more, 300K you need to have a good 2-bedroom condo, but in terms of villa, definitely it would be either in somewhere not really with vacation, right? Like, or very, very, old buildings that you need to do a lot of, rebuilding and stuff, that's how it works. But in Bali, I know that this works, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't yet say. So 250, I would say, is like the entry price for a 2-bedroom, right? If like you want to go more premium, like a 2-bedroom can easily cost you, and that's a leasehold also, by the way. We need to differentiate leasehold and freehold pricing, right? But so that's the entry price. And so even though that's not a lot of money per se to buy a 2-bedroom house with like, 120 square meters in it, it's a lot of money to ask of somebody in cash in one go, right? Or over the course of 12 months, right? So, and there's no financing, which I guess is similar to Thailand, right? Like for foreigners, it's half or say
90% of the developers in Phuket right now, they have funded from the buyers and give them payment plans, like you have a first installment, you can deposit, like let's say $5,000-6,000, then you have 30% first installment. Then next stage of construction you pay 20, and all of this, it's not a loan, but it's a payment plan from the developer. It's 0% in this case, right? So many people, they cannot imagine how it's possible, but it's because of the buyers funding the project in this case, right? And in this case, they have like 2-3 years approximately to make sure that they can pay it in some parts, right? Sometimes today in Phuket, actually, some developers will be raised to give you even extended payment plan that you pay, for example, 60% upon completion, and the rest of 40% you can pay for another couple of years, but you already use your property, start to gain your ROI, and work with this as well. So this one is where there is developers ready to get their margin later, right? But they want to so fast, like usually it's also really standard business model here. But of course, if you speak about one to buy something in one go, you need to sit on cash, and it's not everyone can afford.
Yeah, I guess you guys are also, I'm very impressed with the stuff that I've seen here in terms of like complexity of projects, where we talked earlier over lunch about sort of the next thing that you were building, which is really like a community with where everything is integrated. Right, in Bali, you're talking about much simpler, like, yeah, I'm building 8 villas in one block, right, kind of thing.
Even if, to be honest, when I went to Bali, I even think like all of the actual explanation what means villa, right? Like, so in Phuket, villa, it means it's like a standalone house with a separate pool and with some gardens and stuff like this. Then they call it villa. In Bali, most of the time, it's even townhouse is called like a villa. Screw one bedroom villa, like. And of course, in Phuket, it's I'm not right now trying to judge or something. It just why I was surprised that even like even in Phuket will have a car parking. Like a private car parking. There is you probably will not have it as well. That's why it's kind of a little bit different, right, for the proposition.
So yeah, note to our friends in Bali, we need to get a bit better on the terminology. So no, but I guess if even in Bali, like back to the sort of the affordability question, right? The projects typically take a lot less time than 3 years, right? Like I can finish the building probably in 12 to 14 months, right? So that's like the maximum I can give on a payment plan. But what I'm also hearing is that if I'm a foreigner in Thailand, I can get a loan from a bank to like actually finance, my care purchase.
Actually, now is back then it was almost impossible to get a loan from foreign developer, let's say. But today, if you get
as a buyer,
we get right now some programs for some banks, but it's not really one of the main problem is yes, it would be possible for resident.
Yeah,
if you live here, let's say. Personally, I'm as Oleg living in Thailand for almost 14 years with a track record of work permit. It's like a kitas in Bali. I have one work permit over 10 years. Without any cuts in any year. So I can prove that I'm a resident for many years. I have my credit history here. My kid go here in the school and stuff like this. So in this case, I actually can get a Thai loan. Even I have a credit cards in Thailand. I have 2 credit link lanes from Thai banks as well. But to get the bank loan, you need to prove that you're a resident. Yes, that's why, in this sense, most of the people who come here, they still don't planning to live here. They're tourists. That's why it's still you cannot massively, like you said, as a business model to expect that you will come and Thai bank will give you the loan. But the developer on the other side, they right now they come the bank do compliance, and then afterwards it's many companies can get payments from the bank as well.
Yes. So looking at it from the buyer side, right? My buyers were mostly exactly what you described, right? People who come infrequently, right, and mostly also want to buy for investment purposes and don't intend to stay there, right? Yes. So now these guys couldn't get a loan, right? And so the affordability issue was kind of real, right? How can I finance this 250K purchase over the next year, right?
Yeah.
That means I have to have a net asset value of like $1 million or above, right? So that makes sense for a second home, right?
Yeah, of course.
So affordability was one of the issues we ran in. Complexity of doing this deal and like doing like owning abroad was the other one that we tackled, right? So first question was always, Marius, this is Indonesia. Can I trust you, right? How do I know you own the land?
Yeah.
How do I know the landowner is really the landowner? So this is kind of like a very standard question that we had to solve many times for people. And then once the building is finished, I don't want to get called at 2 a.m. when the guest checks in and can't find the tea spoon. Who's going to take care of that for me? And who is going to manage the repair guy? I don't want to deal with this kind of stuff, right? So there was a lot of like friction also in owning real estate abroad. And that was the second issue we came into. And the third one was lastly the inflexibility of actually owning abroad. Can I exit this again? What if my needs change? What if I get sick of holidaying in Bali and I need liquidity?
Yeah.
So it's like basically these three questions all our buyers kept asking us. And so Marcus and I put our heads together. We were like, how can we solve this for buyers to help people live this beautiful tropical life whenever they want, but without breaking the bank, right? And how can we maybe turn even the idea of, instead of spending, having vacation as an expense, how can we turn that into an investment for people, into an asset? And so we look to co-ownership, which is a very applied principle to any assets that are not super highly utilized, right? So think private planes or like a yacht. Nobody owns those things alone anymore, right? They're shared between different owners, because then the utilization of that one boat or of that one jet will be high, right? And you're not paying for days that you're not using. Yeah, and so there were already players in the US and in Europe doing this. And so we took that principle of co-ownership and applied to villas in Bali. And
so you do it in the way of just legal, let's say, separation, or you do it also pekinization one, or how it works inside, but explain.
Really good question, Oleg. So I want to always steer clear of the fractional term, because that I think is more in this like token kind of area. We are a co-ownership startup, so that's a very established legal principle. You create sort of one company, right? You split the property into A shares. The company owns the property that the villa is built on, and then you split that into 8 shares. Each co-owner owns 1/8, 12.5% of that company,
okay,
and hence is entitled to 1/8 of the total amount of days in that. Yeah, so 365 days divided by 8 gives you 44 days or 6 weeks per year, right? Now, if you're like, I like Bali, I love it, I want to stay 2 months at a time, you just buy more shares, right? It's very flexible. You can scale it up and down.
So, and how you evaluate different seasons and different prices, right? Or how it works. It's not the equal price for all the 8 share stockholders. Some of them could choose in a big season, get it more expensive. Some of them could choose a low season, can get at lower price, right? Or it's depends. Go take fast and fast how it works for you.
No, I need to be really careful because you're going to throw some tricky, trendy questions. Oleg has been an expert in timeshares. So we have a very standardized approach to this, right? We take 365 days in the year and we categorize them into peak, mid, and low season days, right? And so there's about 80, for example, in Bali, there's 80 peak season days a year.
Can you please express for our audience, for like say most of our people from Phuket, I guess, who are interested in Phuket, right? Can you explain peak, high, and low season in Bali? What's months is it?
Yeah.
Because in Thailand, peak season is December, January. High season November slash I think now maybe April, right? And May till October, it's a low season. How it works in Bali?
It's actually very interesting. I was surprised that it's rainy season here. I expected a bit more sun when I came here. So right now is sunny in Bali and it's actually May season, right? Yeah, you have European tourists coming over during the summer. You have Aussies coming over during the winter. So that's one of the peak seasons. Then you go sort of like your mid is always like a shoulder, right? That gets you into the low season. So then comes mid and a low season after that. And then it picks back up again, indeed, towards the end of the year when even though rainy season starts in December in Bali, right? And it goes until February, March. So that's when sort of like the next peak season happens. So
2 peak seasons per year.
Correct. Yes. Which, also reflects in, that's why we have like very high average occupancy rates, right? Because during peak seasons, we see, it's say 82, 85, sometimes 90% on some really well-managed properties. and that brings up the average by quite a bit.
Yeah, and you focus on some specific area in Bali, or you multiply because it's like there's popular places like Canggu, right? Like some different destinations. So what is your focus area?
So what we learned from, so we have investment from the leader of co-ownership in Europe, Mine. They raised $100 million in total, and they've been operating this type of business for the last 5 years. And the founders basically did an investment in PARADYSE. And what we know from them, we started this business with only 3 developments on the platform, right? And we thought, okay, one of them was mine, one of them was Marcus's, and one of them was from a friendly developer. And very quickly, once we started talking to customers, we noticed, okay, this is not nearly enough inventory to cover the breadth of people's tastes and preferences, right? And that's also what the Mine guys actually echoed. And so
Even in terms of investment or in terms of rentals?
in terms of, so I would say we don't have like 100% cohorts of investors only, right? There's always a mix of people who buy for investment purposes, but there's also people who want to actually use it, right, as a holiday thing, right? And so we kind of, when I'm saying preferences, it's investors are pretty agnostic. They say, show me the returns, right? And they don't even come to visit the property, right? They just say, okay, this is like low enough amount. Here you go. I'm good.
Yeah, okay.
It's for the lifestyle guys, right? They have typically very specific requirements. Like I want to be close to the beach, right? Or I really want to be close to Ubud, which is their cultural hub. I want to do ceremonies. I like spirituality, right? And so at the spiritual hub there. So then, we had to go out and actually expand the property portfolio. We always ask one qualifying question when people come into the website, which is which regions, right? And we try to really understand country by country now. Australia first, Singapore launched later, and then Dubai. Where do people actually want to be, right? And so, we built out different destinations. Right now we have 6 in Bali.
Awesome. Well, 6 different destinations. Can you tell one by one, just to make sure that our audience know where you are located, if people from Bali look at it or people who knows Bali?
Of course, so like you said, Canggu is probably the thing that everyone knows, which is, very busy, lots of traffic. I like to call it a global village, right? It's very close to the beach. You can surf there. You have probably the best food on the entire island there. It's very vibrant. There's a lot of entertainment venues. More expensive as well, and because the property prices have gone up there so much, the returns are slightly less good than in other areas. Then you have, I would say, if you tell me I'm just here to invest, there's Uluwatu, right, which is right now the hot zone. Actually, my co-founder and I, we looked at land there a year and a half ago, and it's basically the land when we did the deal in April this year was 50% higher compared to 1.5 years ago. So that's how hot it is, right?
Yeah.
But it still made commercial sense. Like we still think, that area has a lot of potential. There's still so much development coming up. So Uluwatu is great for investors because there's not a lot of supply yet, but there's a ton of demand. It's the most beautiful area in Bali. You have these dramatic cliffs, maybe 60, 80 meters high overlooking the ocean. And then there's just like nothingness. We don't have that many islands around like you guys have here in Thailand. So you look out onto the horizon,
Yeah.
So I think tourists really love that. And this is where most of the money right now is flowing. And that's also where kind of like the sales are happening the fastest, I would say.
Okay.
Then there's obviously Ubud, right? Yeah. Then there's Sanur. So Ubud we talked about. Then there's Sanur, which is more like more infrastructure, more residential. Yeah.
Like close to airport, right? New road, right? Like okay, yeah.
There's Sanur, and then there's sort of like Seminyak, which is like
classical tourism area.
Exactly.
Like it's our Patong. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the areas that
So that you look great. And even you take your investors, so they don't really mind. They you believe for the area, they invest in that area, like not only for their preferences. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as long, I think for the investors, it's important that they believe that we can achieve the returns, right? And we give them confidence that we can do it. And then many of them don't even need to visit the properties, or they're happy with the video viewing, right? But they don't need to.
Afterwards, if they want to come to stay by themselves, they come in and they book in advance, right? Like, or you rent it those days out, right? And they get a profit, right?
So what's amazing about Paradise is it's very flexible. If I'm saying investor, but it means you own one share in Paradise, you own 44 days, right? Now, if you decide to come 0 days, I will rent out all your days on your behalf, right? If you come,
I have a little bit of legal question. How you do it? It's a separate company, right? So then you sell in shares in company, and this property registered under this company, correct?
correct, yes.
In Bali, you don't need, like in Thailand, to have local shareholders, or how it works in terms of legal part.
No, so we have a construct called a PTPNA, which is a foreign-owned company. Yes. So that enables actually foreigners to own to be shareholders in a Bali.
Yeah, and so then you buy in the land only that you can register under companies like this, right?
Yeah, you thought every land you can register like this first instance, right? We definitely need to talk about that. But so most lands that we sell right now is leasehold, right? And so how it then works is you just transfer the leasehold title, which is just a contract between the owner of the land and you, which says I can do with this land what I please. I also can build on it for the next 30 years, right? Okay, and that basically gets transferred to the company, and you own a share of that.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, and at this stage, how you actually market these rentals? So you do the classical tools like Airbnb, whenever Booking.com, or another OTAs, or how you doing that?
Yeah, so we
Separate business as far as what I feel: construction, ownership, and like let's do it like this: uh, asset management, then construction, and then rental management, right? Yeah, those are three different businesses combined in one structure, right?
super important side note, Paradise has nothing to do with construction, right? It's kind of an asset light broker and manager, if you will. Or I call it just a co-ownership platform, right? But the construction, that's what my co-founder and I kind of do on the side, right? But we mainly operate suppliers, right?
So exactly, general constructor, you just hire general constructor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so maybe the way I see Paradise is sort of like an asset-light tech platform, right? And we work with whether we sell our own developments, which is, becoming less and less now, because to cover everybody's preferences, we just needed so much stock. We couldn't be everywhere, right? Now we basically partner with other developers to sell. We're basically a sales engine for developers, right?
One of my very big and famous friend said once since that you cannot be everywhere, but you have to try.
Yeah, but at least you have to try it. Yeah, but maybe we came up a little bit too quickly on this. Yeah, just in it. So yeah, so we essentially, like, how we partner with developers is, look, if you're a developer, you can sell your villas normally. Like I sell a full villa, right? And I wait for the guy to show up that can afford this 250K, 300K. Not everybody has that kind of money.
Yeah.
So I come to you and I say, Oleg, look, I know you're building 10 villas. Give me one of them. Give me 4 or 5 months exclusively. I will market this thing for you. And you are tapping into an audience here, which is people with 30K to 100K to spend, which cannot afford to buy the whole thing. Which, by the way, is 10 times larger than the amount of people who can afford to buy a villa, right? And so that is my promise to the developer. I'm helping you tap into this demand bubble. I'm already bringing a network of qualified buyers. As soon as I onboard your villa, I can already say, hey guys, look at a new villa. Who's interested, right?
Your goal is to expand in other countries in this scale, right? So that's there. Yeah. The goal is to have many countries in your portfolio, right? And especially if we go deeper, your business at asset management manager, as far as I see, right? And then you need to cut partnership in different places, right? Yeah.
I would even remove myself one step further from making the business complicated with the asset manager. We partner with asset managers, right? So we're just kind of like the tech platform on top, and we have SOPs, right? We're building now also an app for our co-owners so that they can see, this is, my rental returns. This is, my annual budgets. They can book their stay. They can, see how their 44 days are being used, how many have been rented out.
So you do it in kind of IT classical way, or you do in some kind of tokenization system, or like how it will be, or it's just for comfort of usage. What's the idea?
Yeah, so I think we wanna, like, I remember my buyers, right? Many of them are like 55 plus.
Yeah.
And because somebody was advising me, why don't you do it tokenized, right? Because every time we actually transfer the leasehold, every time shareholder transfers, we have to pay like $1,000 or so to process this. It's very expensive in Indonesia, right? Yeah. So obviously you can save a lot of money by tokenizing it. But if I just imagine myself pitching, this very nice old Australian lady, hey, like, by the way, we do this on the blockchain, she would immediately hang up the phone on me, right?
Yeah, but the blockchain is kind of technology only. Yeah. But yeah, I will give you a very interesting insight. About months ago, I asked my team to calculate what's the average property buyer in our company. Because at this stage, we have about almost 800 buyers, in total 800 transactions we did during our, like, since our company exists, right? And yeah, and yes, I was curious, what's the average age, right? So average age in SID is 32 years old. We know. So in general, we work with these millennials. Now Zoomers actually stopped buying quite a lot of stuff. Like, and here was interesting that every like every decade things changed. Like now is the property buyer become to be younger. Yeah, that's. But I agree with you that still audience for people 50 plus is a main audience. But what I believe also that many young people cannot afford property actually will love your product only because of the it's a easy entry level for them to try at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, many people who are considering us, they cannot afford the real thing, right? And it's kind of similar to my dental startup back in the days. Like the real treatment that I offer, it would have cost like $8,000, right? So
Yeah.
there's the people we can segment, customers for this into three brackets. There's the people who can afford the real thing.
Yeah.
Maybe some people would say, I don't actually need a full property, and maybe it's, like overkill. So with some of them, I could maybe convert. The people who can almost support a property, they're interested in this, right? And the people who can't afford it, I would say they're our core audience, right? So, yeah, so this is kind of like who we attract the most in terms of buyers, I would say at the moment.
Okay, it sounds beautiful. So, uh, I have a lot of people from Phuket who watch this podcast, right? So what link we need to put under this video to make sure who need to come to Paradise? It's first of all, it's should be people who want to get their shared investment, right? Second of all, it's real estate developers who don't know how to sell their product, but you have the really good solution for them, right? So who else? Uh,
So I would say anybody who feels like either buying a whole home doesn't make sense for them financially. They want to spread their risk. Maybe they want to invest in a couple of destinations,
afford to diversify their investment from Phuket to another places, or for example from Bali to Phuket, for example, in future when you have the project here, right?
Yeah.
So put the message down if you're interested. If you're one of those, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's crazy. That's great. And I'm also looking for exactly developers to work with here in Phuket because we're always looking at the next markets, and I think it's very clear that outside of Bali, Phuket is the other biggest destination in Southeast Asia that's really popping right now in real estate.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I just had one more podcast a couple of hours ago, and we discussed that it's completely different. It looks like the same, but it's completely different. Even like in Bali, when you buy property, you expect, like you said, villa, right? In Phuket, you have all of the difference: villas, townhouses, condos, hotel investments. Now is a new trend in Phuket is commercial. So developer finally found out that, okay, there is a good business to build commercial estates and make infrastructure because it's also profitable, not only residential use. That's what we do as well. And it's a big challenge, but very interesting where we go. Where we go. That sounds good. Uh, like how do you see yourself? You are international. You're more companies that want to work in Southeast Asia, or it's world expansion in this case.
Yeah. So I guess our vision for this, Oleg, is I guess the version 1 of the product was really to make vacations investable, right? So I take something, you think about it, if you're a family of 3, right? You go on a holiday in Bali for 44 days a year. You spend 5K, 6, 7K just on the accommodation on the short-term rental market, right? If you rent an Airbnb. Do that 5 times, you could have bought a share in PARADYSE that lasts you 30 years on a lease. Yeah. So you kind of made that expense into an asset. The version 2 that we want to build with PARADYSE is almost like a global travel passport. So we do that through swaps, which means as we add more properties, so for example, we start doing Thailand, right? As we add Thailand to the network, I have 1 share in Bali, you own 1 share, Oleg, in Phuket. I can send you a swap request. Hey, I have 20 days that I want to swap with you next year. Would you like to swap with me? They say, yes, why not? I want to try Bali. All of a sudden, the value of my 1 share, of my 1 PARADYSE share has increased exponentially, right? Because with every destination that we cover, I basically unlock a new destination, right? So that's what I mean, like a lifestyle travel partner.
In the timeshare industry, it's called actually like the things that we do in it's fractional ownership, and next thing is timeshare that called clubs. You buy an ownership and you travel around the world in different destinations, but you are owner of the club owner, kind of stuff like this. Yeah, so it's a similar vision, I guess, right? But more modernized and more digitalized, right?
Look, you're a timeshare guy, so tell me what you think about my take on timeshares.
I'm not. I'm. Like one of I was the business many years ago. I understand how it works. One of the main issue in timeshare is the way how people sell it. Like it's quite aggressive sales in terms of. But in general, product. If product is made maximum transparent, and if you can prove all of the ownerships, and if you can prove all of the legal things inside, so then I have no problem to it. But in reality, timeshares around the world did not have good reputation, not because of the product, because of the way of how people sell it. And in this case, if people make their own decision in your app, and they believe that this is transparent and safe, so then what's problem? I not see any issue.
So I think what you said is completely correct. Like one of the main questions, especially for the older generations who've been sort of targeted by these timeshare sales motions, right?
It was exactly like when your parents go for the honeymoon. That was booming by that time. Yeah.
Every person over 50 asks me, are you guys a timeshare, right? With a very bitter tone of voice, right? And I always have to say, look, we're definitely very different from a timeshare in 3 ways. Timeshare, you don't own anything, right? It's just a right to use.
It's only in fractionals you own. Like if you buy, there's different products, but yeah, in the timeshare, exactly, not only you just use just the car.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have the equity ownership, right? Which is very different. So that means, you don't participate in profit distributions, and you don't participate in property appreciation, right? So that's already differentiator number 1. Differentiator number 2, you basically, like from a customer experience perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, would you rather walk into like a random hotel room, or would you rather walk into a villa that is prepared for you, has sort of your favorite wine bottle chilled, your favorite Spotify playlist playing when you arrive, and really feels like you're home away from home?
I think in the end of the day, it depends of the quality of management. Like it's I'm not sure that for people it's a big, it's in one place and another can be a good quality or not good quality. Of course, you can get good experience in hotel, but probably price will be triple from your service. But in your case, you will go and you will get same experience as hotel, but for different price. And you will have, I guess, more a personal involvement from the management instead of the, let's say, 500 hotel guests, you get 5 guests or 10 guests in the real estate, right? Stuff like this. I believe that's what you want to mention, right?
Yeah, like you said in the beginning, it's a modernized. Like I think timeshare had a place and time, and it was kind of great. And the size of these programs, like you take Hilton Grand Vacation and the Marriott by themselves, these two are worth $20 billion, right? Just these two timeshare programs.
Yeah.
And there's about like 20 million timeshares out there sold, right?
When I work in Greece, in one of the company called Diamond Resort International, right? And it was sold in 2020. It was sold to Hilton for $3 billion. Like it's right. So now it's a Hilton owned those.
Yeah. So there you go, right? These are massive programs. And so I think the good news is this is how much value a company like PARADYSE can create, right? That's like the ceiling. So this can be a multi-billion-dollar business if you scale it in the right way, right? Yeah, so I think, but again, like fundamentally different products, a bit more modernized and maybe more appealing to the younger generations who want that like more personal touch, like you said, right?
Then I think tokenization makes real sense. Yeah, that's why it's good for you to look at it, because generation love to ask you, so how it's tokenized, how to make sure that smart contract is a real smart contract, right? That's true. It's not true stuff like this. It's a different target group, I guess.
Yeah, with you, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, awesome. I can speak with you 2, 3, 5 hours, I guess. That's very interesting. And I have really good sympathy to you as my guest here. But I would like our viewers to get as much as possible value from this hour of talk, right? And I think I will ask you last question, right? And usually most of the guests that sit on my table is people who is from Thailand. If you are right now kind of in the mix, little bit of Bali, but that is an international expansion, right? Like, actually, I want to say hi to Yuri, friend of us, who are doing super legend, who connect us, and it's a good connector people for different innovation all over the world. Yeah, and I will ask you a question like this. It's how do you see, because now AI, like many things around will change because a lot of AI solutions, digital entrepreneurs go into the real segment. That's what you're doing actually, right? What do you believe how the Southeast Asia will look in 2035? In next 10 years, where do you see yourself? Like as company, and where do you believe the actual like Asian market will be? How is it? You can say as your strategy, as your vision, or as your dream. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. How do you see it?
Wow, it's a great question. If I put my McKinsey hat on, right?
Yeah.
I've seen digital adoption in Asia in general lagging a little bit behind Europe and the US, right? But in some places it's always a little bit faster. So it's kind of hard to figure out, which is which. From a real estate perspective, like in terms of markets, I mean, yields that you can get in Bali and in Phuket right now are far outpacing what you can get in like mature markets, right? So I think it will be like for like a real estate investor, this will be the place to be by 2035. And I think what I can see is also, for example, the domestic market is really like expanding in Indonesia, right? I'm sure it's kind of similar, like there's a growing middle class in Southeast Asia, which will drive maybe also the next wave of demand once this like international investment has sort of like peaked a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think this, from a market perspective, we will see super interesting, right? And then there's also this whole thing of global arbitrage, right? There's inflation everywhere. People are like, the cities have become too expensive. People are looking like, where can I get more value for my money? I see that Billy has also a mega trend driving more people towards Southeast Asia. There's 40 million digital nomads by now, right? Floating around the globe. That's a huge untapped bubble. So I think there's really good kind of like drivers from the demand side of the market. Now, the supply side in terms of also like digitization, right? If I go to my construction site in in Indonesia, right? We talked about stuff bamboo on the side, yes or no? So Thailand already, has no more bamboo scaffolding. I think Indonesia, I remember when we introduced tools and digital processes to the contractor, it's still an ongoing pain, and I think I'm struggling to picture how. I know that even on German construction sites, they're struggling to introduce tools in a meaningful way, right? So I don't know how much time it will take for the supply side to catch up.
There's two radical ways. In German, to implement innovation, you will have a lot of compliance to make sure that you can innovate it. In Asia, to implement the innovation, you don't have anything, you need to build it from scratch, and that's why. So we are somewhere in the middle, I guess. Like,
I'll give you a counter to that though. In Germany, it's so expensive to employ people that it actually makes economical sense to use AI and like start using it strategically to replace people, right?
Yeah.
In Southeast Asia, like probably for another 10 years, it makes sense to just hire another guy and like have that guy be your AI, right?
So yeah, kind of. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Marius, for this podcast. I have really good time, and I wish you good luck with your company, with your startup, with your vision. And let's see, I will be happy to see your business in Phuket.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time today, Oleg. It was amazing. Appreciate you.
Thank you.